Hi guys and welcome. It is Karen here with you today, and today I'm going to be using one of my new designs from my art pack Cosmos and also some of my wallpapers which are also called Cosmos. So I'm working in my large dilutions journal and I've printed out my image onto some tissue paper, and you can see that there. I'm just ripping off the sharp edges so that I can glue her into my book. I have also got my piece of wallpaper here, which has also been printed onto tissue, and I'm just ripping that up into a few little pieces. So I don't really know what I'm going to do today other than I wanted to use these two pieces. So let's see what happens. So I'm gluing them into my book with some Matisse gel medium, which is quite a liquidy one, which is really good for tissue because it doesn't rip. So I'm just gluing them into my book, and I'm going to start on my face here in a minute. So I'm putting my glue onto my page. I'm going to lay my girl over the top, and then I'm going to glue her down in a crossroad. So it's starting from the middle and going to the outside so that I can squish out all the creases and wrinkles and bubbles and things. So just putting a couple of little scraps in. And once I've got her dry, I have decided that I'm going to use some of my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay inks, because these are like a permanent ink. They're fun and they're kind of like a watercolor. So I've got some teals and aquas and an aquamarine, I think it is, and then the two purples I have is a red violet and a violet, and the yellow. So I've just poured in a little bit of water out of my spray bottle there into the palette, and I'm just going to splash that colour around, just sort of mixing some of the yellow in with the blue so I can get some nice greens happening as well. So yeah, so the purple I'm going to use on her hair. So I'm just going to start on with the blue, and I'm going to get that dry, and then I'm going to do another layer here just to darken it up, kind of matching with those wallpapers a little bit. Like I said, I didn't really have a plan as to what I was going to do, but as you can see, my wallpapers are starting to get quite lost in the background, and eventually you can't see them at all. Oh well, doesn't matter, they're there, they're an extra layer. So I'm just adding some purple into her hair now, and get that nice and dry. And I've cut out my little bird, which is part of the pack as well, to sit on her shoulder. So in the pack you can have a choice of putting an owl, a cat, a bird, a moth or a butterfly or a flower onto her shoulder, whatever takes your fancy really, so you can mix it up. So I've decided to use the little bird, so I've got her cut out onto some just some white card. I didn't print her out on the tissue because that would make her transparent, so then when I glue her onto the page you would still see all the hair and whatnot, so that's why she's on white card. Oh, there's Bonnie, that's my kitty cat. So the stencil that I'm using there is from the Crafters Workshop, and this other little one that I've got here with the purple paint is from Art by Marlene. I'm using Paper Artsy paints here because they're quite nice to work into the background, and I've also got some white. So this little star stencil is from 13 Arts. It's quite cute, it's got tiny little stars in it and I really like it, so I'm going to pop that into my background there as well. Okay, so I've decided that I'm going to use some Lavinia stamps that I got at my very local craft shop, Bev's Cross Crafts. She has loads of stuff with Lavinia on it. Anything Lavinia, Bev has got it. So I've just used a little script stamp there, and now I've got a moon, so I'm going to stamp that one kind of around where I've done that script stamping. And that's looking quite cool. The next one that I have is a little star, so you probably can't see it very well, but it's a little group of stars, so I'm just going to stamp those around quite random as well. And the next one is kind of little pin dots. It's only a little stamp again, but I've decided to stamp this one out with the blue archival. So once I've cleaned off my stamps, I've got that bit there done. That looks pretty cool. I decided it needed a little bit more darkness in it, so I've picked out this purpley blue colour, which is from Paper Artsy. It's called Blueberry, and my stencil is by the wonderful Michelle Grant. So it's available at Bearty. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that around just to help darken up some of that, and I think that made it pop. Okay, so the next thing I've got out is my Tombow markers, and I'm going to colour in my bird, and of course my bird's going to be yellowy orange because I think that will look really cool with the purples and the blues. I think it's really going to pop out, so that's what I'm doing there. So I'm just scribbling a little bit of colour onto the bird, and then I am using a wet paintbrush to spread the colour around. So you'll see me do that here with her hair. So that's just another Tombow marker. So I can use my Tombow markers over the top of the Bombay inks, and it's not going to run. Like my Bombay inks aren't going to move because they're permanent. So I can use all my Tombows over the top, and it's not going to hurt it at all. So here you can see me adding in the other side. So I'm just wetting that bit down. So I'm kind of making her hair a little bit streaky, so it's got some highlights and some darker parts in it, like all hair does. And of course it managed to leak on over her hair, over her face, which I wasn't really wanting that to do anyway. So now I have out a darker purple Tombow, and I'm just doing the same thing, adding in some darker parts into her hair. I think it's starting to look quite cool. So it's got a bit of pink and purpley bits in it. Yeah, so I'm liking how that's going at the moment. It kind of runs in a little bit onto her face, as you can see, a little bit around the hairline, so I wasn't that keen on that, so I'm just going to get that dry. And this is kind of where I muck it up a little bit, well, in a minute. Anyway, I'm just going to brighten up my bird. There we go. You'll see what happens in a minute. I'm going to get out my Neon 2s, and I've grabbed out a skin colour. Now, here we go. And I've used the crayon around her hairline to help cover over the smudge of the Tombow running into her face. And I've wet it, and it looks really good at this stage. But because I've used the waxy crayon, it makes it quite difficult for me later on when I go to use my Prismacolor pencils and my black rollerball pen. It doesn't work out so well. And I'm actually going to paint over it here in a minute because I really didn't like it. It was looking really quite messy. So I've got out my gesso, and I'm going to paint over her face. So I didn't really want to do this because I wanted to keep her eyes as they were. I didn't want to have to redraw them or any of that, but I'm going to have to because I've mucked up the hairline and it looks really messy. Well, up close it looks really messy. You really can't tell that much on camera, but yeah. So I'm just doing a light whitewash is what I'm trying to say over her face, so you can still see the lines, so you can still see the details of where her eyes, her nose and her lips are. So I'm going to get that dry, and that looks much better. But here I get out my crayon again, and I should have not done that anyway. So I've made my life much harder than what it needed to be because I've used the crayon. Oh well, live and learn. Don't use the crayon, people. I would have been better off to use just my skin colour Prima watercolour paint that I used off first hand, but I didn't. Oh well. So in the meantime, I'm adding some more highlights into her hair with the neon colour 2s, which is fine because, you know, that looks cool. That's what I wanted it to do. So, yeah. Anyway, now I'm going to grab out a white Life of Colour pen, and I'm going to colour in the whites of her eyes so I can see where they are. It's quite obvious. So I'm just going to colour those in, and then I'm going to do the black pupils, and I've drawn around where the star and the little circle and the comet are in her eyes so that I don't have to try and redraw the catch lights back in again. So I've left those bits there. So I'll get those dry, and then I can come back in and do another part of the white. Now my white pen is almost dead. It pretty much dies in this project. But I keep on going with it. I keep on persevering when I should just throw it out. Okay, so now I've got a black rollerball pen so I can draw in the details of her eyes. And this is where I start to run into a little bit of trouble because I've got that bit of crayon on my page. The rollerball pen did not like it very much at all. In the meantime, I'm going to colour in the pupils of her eyes with some Intense pencils. And so I've got a bright blue and this one is sherbet lemon, and I'm mixing those two colours in together so they kind of come out a greeny colour. So I was kind of hoping for a little bit more blue, but they turned out quite green. Oh well, doesn't matter. They still look pretty. So adding a little bit there to the bird, to the eye and the beak, and I've got my neon colour 2 pencil out again, and it didn't really work so well over the top of I'm not quite sure. I think I may have sprayed it in between, so yeah, it didn't really want to work out so well. So anyway, carrying on, we're just going to put in her lips, and this is where the drama happens. So I'm trying to flick back in her eyelashes with my rollerball pen, but because I had that crayon around the sides, my rollerball pen didn't want to work. And the other thing is, my rollerball pen is almost empty as well. So that was another issue. So I wasn't having much luck. I tried another pen and that was dead as well. I need some new rollerball pens, which I have purchased in the meantime. So here you can see me just flicking the pen out from the eye to create those lashes. So I do get there in the end and they do look pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to draw around her nose and her lips. And I'm also going to go around her hairline. But again, it doesn't work because I had that crayon there. Well, it kind of did, but not as well as what I'd hoped. And my pen's almost dead. So, you know, oh well. Live and learn. Live and learn. Okay, so now I've grabbed out a black Life of Colour pen. It's quite a thin one, so I'm going to redo some of those lines there around the hairline and around my bird here, because I wanted my bird to have a little pretty cool black edge around it. So that's what I'm doing now. And I'm also going to colour in his legs because his little stick legs kind of went a bit weird, so I decided, well, let's just make them black and they'll look much better. There we go. So I'm going to draw some eyelashes on my little birdie's eye now, which I think looks quite cute. So I'm all about, I love the big lashes. So the little birdie has actually got a star and a comet in its eye. I think it's comet. It might be just a little star, a little dot, sorry. So now I've decided to grab out some pastel pencils, and this didn't really work out so well. It just kind of left it scratchy and not so great, and I think that was because of the clear gesso that I actually had over the top of my image so that I could do my pencil work and the crayon and such. So anyway, I gave up on that. So now I have my Prismacolor pencils, and at the time I didn't really like how this was working out either, but watching it back on the camera, it's actually not that bad. So I've got 3 purples there, you can see those, and a pale pink, and I'm just kind of trying to blend those colours in around the face so that she has a little bit more overshadow around her face. But I wasn't having a lot of success. I'm not the world's best pencil user, certainly not Prismacolor pencils, but I try. And I've got out a blending pencil as well to help blend those colours in together and to smooth them out a little bit. Yeah, so it actually doesn't look too bad watching it back on the camera, but I really wasn't happy with it. So what I'm going to do is grab out my pan pastels, of course, and I'm going to use those instead. And where her cheeks are a bit scratchy, I got out a pink one so that I can redo those and make them look a little bit better so it wasn't so scratchy. And I've added a little pink cheek onto my little bird there as well. So just adding some pencil highlights now into her hair. I think that looks really cool. She's looking much better. I'm quite happy with her now. So to bring her out from the background, I've got out my Stabilo All pencil. But in the meantime, I've decided to grab my Life of Colour pen to go around some of these lines on her face because they were just annoying me from where I tried to use the crayon and it just didn't work. Anyway, so I've grabbed out a wet paintbrush and activated that Stabilo. So you can see that starting to run and do its thing around her hair. It's kind of looking a little bit messy. I've also got my Life of Colour pen to draw in some of the black lines in through her hair again, just to pop that out. There we go, mop up that little bit there. So it's starting to look really cool. I'm starting to really like how it's heading now, finally. This is quite a long video today because I had a few issues on getting it to work out how I wanted it to, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so it kind of just ended up taking forever. But anyway, that's all right. It's all good. So there we go. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so I've got out my white Life of Colour pen now that's almost dead. And I'm going to draw some stars onto my bird because, you know, that's cool. So that's what I'm doing there. Just some rough little stars, colouring them in, tidying them up, the shape up a little bit because, you know, it looked a little bit weird. So here I am again trying to use an almost dead pen. I'm going to throw this one out here in a minute. There we go. And I've grabbed out a new one. Woohoo! So it's working so much better, of course. And I can pop in some details here. I've decided to give her a little bit of a shirt. So I've added some details onto the collar and I'm going to add in some stars onto her shoulder, which I will give a little bit of a white highlight to after. So I've decided, what am I going to do with this other side of the page? I've decided to use some black gesso and I'm going to paint some lines in to do my quote. So I have picked a quote out from my quote sheet, which is also included into the art pack. There is a link down below as to where you can purchase my art pack, which is from Michelle Grant Designs in my corner of the shop. And yeah, so I've picked out the quote sheet that I wanted to do, decided that, yep, I need 5 lines. So I'm just painting those in with the black gesso, and I didn't go all the way over to her hair because I didn't think I would, but then afterwards it's like, yeah, you know what, that looks really weird. So I've decided to continue it over, and I've also sketched out the quote with some Stabilo pencils. So I forgot to turn the camera back on, and oh, a gushy pen. Luckily, Posca pens will actually wipe up off the gesso while they are still wet. So I've mucked up another little less there that I'm going to come back and fix in a minute. Yeah, it was a bit leaky, this one. There we go. Fix that. Oh no, let's just wipe that off and we can write it in again. And there's a bit of a puddle on that ice on the end of the cosmos as well. So, moondust in your lungs, stars in your eyes, you are a child of the cosmos, a ruler of the skies. So I think that's a perfect quote for my little girl here. So once I've done one layer of my Posca, because I wanted my quote to be much brighter white, I've decided to go over it again just with my Posca pen. So this is a little bit thicker Posca pen than the white one that I was using to do the stars and things like that, because I wanted my words to stand out a little bit more. Just going over my stars with a new white pen because the other one had died, putting in the white highlights on the stars, adding some extra details into her eyes there with a little bit of a galaxy dust, I suppose. And now I'm just going to draw some stars onto my black lines here just to help break that up and make that look really quite cool. So yeah, I'm just scribbling them out, colouring them in and tidying up my shape as I go along, so it does actually look a little bit like a star and not just a, you know, I don't know, blob. So I've just about finished. So the next thing that I'm doing here, or the last thing that I'm actually doing, is I've got out some Liquitex Silver acrylic ink, and I've just sprinkled that over my page with a fan brush. And here she is. So she took a very long time, but she's finished. I hope you have enjoyed my video. I hope you like my new art pack. I really hope that you decide to share my project with some of your friends. And please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. And until next time, I will see you later. Bye.